Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Okay, Amy, if we could go ahead and try your sound, please.
Did you need me to do something, Kimberly?
No, I just wanted to make sure. The only way I have of checking my sound is if I have at least one other person log in and tell me they can hear me.
I can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. And it looks like we have a few more logging on, and I want to invite anyone who is from an applicant team to also check sound. So if you'd like to raise your hand, we can go ahead and do a sound check for you. So it looks like just want to also mention this is for our applicant team. So we have Delene Whitlock. You want to go ahead and try that?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sounds good. And also just to let everybody know, we use the webinar version of Zoom. And so for our staff, cameras are optional. And for our applicants and the rest of our attendees, we enable sound only. So if you feel like your camera's not working, that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then we also have Jacqueline Smith. Are you part of an applicant team and you'd like to do a sound check? Okay, it looks like Jacqueline lowered her hand. So, oh, no, there it goes again. Okay, Jacqueline, let's go ahead and check your sound there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I'm with the Fountain Grove team.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to welcome our attendees this evening and give our applicant team a chance to do some sound checks. If you are part of an applicant team and you'd like to do a sound check, please raise your hand. And I also want to just clarify for everyone that we are using the webinar version of Zoom. And so for our applicants and our attendees, we enable sound only. So if you feel like your camera's not working, that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. Again, if you're part of an applicant team and you'd like to do a sound check, please raise your hand within the Zoom meeting. Okay, it looks like we have Olivia Urban. I'm going to send a prompt, and when you answer that prompt, you should be able to be heard.
Hi there, this is Olivia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. I just wanted to clarify, I'm not part of an applicant team. I'm here tonight with the city helping as a CEQA consultant. So I just wanted to make sure that I was accessible and you guys could hear me. If questions come up, I'm available to help answer any questions related to the environmental on both items on the agenda this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Then we also have Lauren. Going to go ahead and send a prompt for you.
This is Lauren Bergman, Phoenix Development Company. I'm here and will be one of the presenters for this evening.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Your sounds just fine. Thank you.
Your sounds great too.
I hope so. Thanks.
Okay.
And so for all of our applicants that we've done sound checks, just a quick reminder to, because you will be able to control your own sound, please keep yourself muted during the course of the meeting unless it is time for you to speak. That would be helpful. Appreciate it.
And if Michael, who is listed here on the attendees list, is Vice Chair Birch from our Design Review Board, if you could please raise your hand and we'll promote you to panelist. Great. Kimberly, can you promote Michael? Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I think we'll get started in just a moment. I want to make sure that everyone that needs to test their audio is able to do so before we get started. Vice Chair Birch, are you able to test your audio?
Yes, that was a struggle, but yes, I can. I'm here.
Great, thank you. Okay, so it's 1 minute after 5. We'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call to order this special meeting of the zoning administrator on June 13th. And pursuant to the California Government Code and also the recommendation of the health officer of the County of Sonoma, we are conducting this meeting by way of Zoom webinar. Members of the public can participate virtually by using the Zoom URL, which is www.zoom.us/join, or by calling toll-free telephone number 877-853-5257. And the meeting ID for today's meeting is 893-9167-6996. Members of the public accessing today's meeting can provide comments during specified public comment periods by way of Zoom by using either the raise hand feature or pressing *9 on your telephone. We are also live streaming this meeting on the city's YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and move on to item number 2. This is just public comment. So this is a time when Any member attending may address matters not listed on today's agenda, but are within the subject matter of this jurisdiction. And each speaker is allowed up to 3 minutes. So I'll go ahead and open public comment on non-agenda items now. If you'd like to make a comment, please press the raise hand button. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I will go ahead and close general public comment and move on to item number 3, which is zoning administrator business. The purpose of the zoning administrator is to take action on various planning applications. Typically, they're minor applications or administrative permits. The zoning administrator is appointed by the director of the Planning and Economic Development Department, and any decision made by the zoning administrator is appealable to the Design Review Board, Cultural Heritage Board, Planning Commission, or City Council as applicable to the decision. Item 3.2 is zoning administrator reports, and I have no reports for today. So we'll move on to item number 4, which is consent items. There are no consent items on today's agenda. So with that, we can move into our scheduled items. Item 5.1, this is a public hearing for 3586 Mendocino Avenue, and this includes a minor hillside development permit and minor design review. And the presentation will be given by Senior Planner Shekali.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nicholson. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint and go over my presentation. It might be a little bit long presentation because this is a big project, so just be patient with me. Okay, let me see. Here, I'm going to turn off my video, share my screen here. There you go. You can see my screen, right? Good to go. Great. Okay, thank you, Ms. Nicholson. As you mentioned, this project is, for the name is Fountain Grove Inn Multifamily Rental Housing Project, located at 3586 Mendocino Avenue. This proposal is for 2 planning entitlements. One is for a minor design review and one is for minor hillside development permit. So, a brief project description. The minor hillside development permit and minor design review are for a proposed 239 unit multifamily apartment project on an approximately 9.6 acre site. The units will be spread among 6 different buildings ranging from 3 to 5 stories. Here is an aerial perspective of the site, as you can see, and it's showing the aerial view from the Mendocino Avenue. And about the units, so 19 studios, out of this 239 units, 19 of those will be studios, 125 units would be 1 bedrooms, and 95 of them would be 2 bedrooms unit. The building will be 3 to 5 stories, and the maximum height is 55, and they are being proposed to this height, the maximum of 55 feet height. The applicant is providing 59 bicycle parking spaces, and the project would require 454 parking spaces, and the site is providing 414 parking spaces. 238 of those spaces would be covered, and the remaining 127 surface parking will be uncovered. The applicant has provided a parking study prepared by W-Trans that has evaluated the proposed parking spaces for this project and concluded that this proposed 414 parking spaces are sufficient for the proposed project. Also, the applicant has provided a parking management plan that which describes how the parking would be managed on site for the guests and future residents. And here is the project site, which used to be the former location of for the Fountain Grove Inn and a restaurant. In 2005, there was an approved project for expansion of the hotel, which was going to add 22 units and also rehabilitation of the historic Grand Barn. However, the site was destroyed in 2007 by the Tubbs fire. And here is the aerial view from the pre-fire for the same site. You can see here the two buildings, the two hotels building and the historical Grand Barn on the right side. And about the zone and general plan. So this property, the general plan land use designation is retail and business services. And the parcels have two zones. One zone is PD, PD 0296, and another one is also PD. Both of these PDs are for commercial, and our general plan goal policy LULE6 encourages residential development in the retail and business service designations. Also, the project site is located within the Mendocino Avenue corridor priority development area, and applications for design review for multifamily residential projects within this corridor area prior to development are delegated to the zoning administrator through the minor design review process, but they are subject to a conceptual design review by the design review board and a pre-application neighborhood meeting. Additionally, the site has the Resilient City Combining District, which was adopted to address housing needs and economic development within the city of Santa Rosa following the Tubbs and Nuns fire in 2017. Also, per the zoning code, multifamily residential projects are allowed within the commercial plan development district without requirement of a use permit. And here is an overall site plan for the project site. This project site would include 6 detached residential structures ranging from 3 to 5 stories in height. All buildings would include residential areas, private open space, circulation parking, and utility areas. Building A, B, and C are located on the upslope portion of the lot along, they are here, I hope you can see my arrow here, along Grand Barn Boulevard, and would only have access from Grand Barn Boulevard. Building D, which is the largest of 6 buildings, is located at the corner of Mendocino Avenue and Fountain Grove Parkway and includes 5 floors. Building E also is along Mendocino Avenue and contains 4 floors. And last is Building F, that is located along the western property line and includes 3 floors. So here are 2 street views that shows the project site as is today. And the lower picture is from 2016 that shows the previously existed structures on the site. The Grand Barn Historic Barn is at the corner here, and the other part of the hotel structures. And here is the slope analysis map. As you can see here, the largest of the 2 buildings that are D and E building, both of them would be placed on the location of the previous buildings, with the areas that were mostly flat, and only some areas behind the building E would be placed on slopes more than 25%. And building A, B, and C are cluster of smaller buildings located on the upslope portion of the lot along Grand Barn Boulevard. These buildings will step with the hillside and include lower floors built into the hillside, which would minimize the visual prominence of the buildings. The majority of the site for building F would be on a slope less than 10%. That is going to be located on the northwest corner of the project site. Building F would be placed behind building E and would be screened by existing trees on that site. And also it would provide access by improving the existing emergency driveway. That access would be also widened. Next slide. And here are the sections of the building B and F And as you can see, majority of these two buildings would be placed on flat areas, except some corners that are behind building A and B. And here are the sections for building A and B and C. And I'm just going to go through almost each building separately and explain what's going on. So here is the cluster of building A, B, and C. Building A would have 15 residential units. Building B would contain 10 units, and building C would have 17 residential units. All the ground floor for these three buildings would include private parking garages with tandem parking for 2 vehicles. Also, at the corner of this area, which is at the corner of Rand Barn and Fontainebleau Boulevard, a space is preserved for an art feature remembering the historic Rand Barn, which was destroyed in 2017 Tubbs fire. The pictures or images on the right side shows the proposed Rand Barn monumental structure, which is a semicircular and approximately 16-foot tall structure that would be presenting the former Rand Barn structure. Here is where those three buildings would be placed as it stands, and the access will be provided only for those three buildings through Rand Barn Boulevard. And here is, I'm just using building A as an example because the rest of the building have similar design and elevations. So the proposed architecture features for this site is, for all the buildings, is Santa Barbara Mediterranean Spanish Revival style. The main architectural features in the building designs include a light color stucco wall, red tile roofs, exposed beams, rounded arches and courtyards, and the use of Juliet and full balconies. Proposed materials would include iron railing, decorative accents, tile accents, concrete tile roofs, and light color stucco and dark colored wall and trim accents. Buildings have been designed to sit with the natural grade of the site, ranging in height from approximately 40 feet to 55 feet. And here are the elevations for building A, with the covered parking garages on the first floor. And here is a perspective view for these three buildings from Rand Barn, where the entrance will be placed. And here is another perspective from Fontainebleau Parkway, and another perspective that is going to be from the Mendocino Avenue. And building B, which I mentioned, this is the largest building on the site. This building would include a total of 114 residential units within a proposed 5-story structure. The ground floor would include a parking garage with 119 parking spaces. Also the ground floor garage also would include 29 bicycle parking spaces, 24 private storage spaces, leasing room, lobby, mail office, and electrical and pool equipment areas. The second floor would include an additional 64 parking spaces and would also include private storage spaces, and also and also the second floor. I'm sorry, there are too many floors here. I'm trying to keep track of them. The second floor includes a swimming pool, barbecue area, a community room, and exercise rooms. So as we can see, this is the largest room, and it provides lots of outdoor common and private spaces for the future tenants. The applicant and the architects are available today, and they can go into more details if there are any questions. And here is a picture from the existing site where the proposed building D will be placed. Here is another view from the site. And these are the elevations for building D. The lower elevation is from Mendocino Avenue. As you can see, garage spaces are provided on the lower level, and the maximum height is for 5-story building. And here are the elevation from the side and rear side of the building. And Here is a perspective for building D at the almost at the corner of Mendocino Avenue and Fountain Grove. And here is building E. This building would include a total of 66 residential units with the proposed within the proposed 4-story structure. Also, the ground floor includes a parking garage with 59 parking spaces, a bicycle parking room with 24 spaces, and 12 private storage spaces will also be included on the first floor, and a lobby, mail, and electrical equipment rooms. The second floor would also include another lobby area. And this building also provides a private outdoor space. As we can see here is on the left side between two structures. And here is the picture of the site where this building would be placed. And here are the elevations for the proposed building E. Again, the applicant can go over the detail if there are any questions. And lastly, here is the building F that will include 17 residential units within a 3-story structure. There are no covered vehicle parking proposed for this building. A bicycle room that will provide 6 bicycle parking spaces also will be located on the ground floor for this building. To access this building, there is, so just let me say this one, that the site already has an emergency vehicle access that was from Hilton Hotel coming to Fountain Grove Hotel. And here is the road, as you can see. This project is proposing to widen and improve this emergency access road that will also provide access to building F. And here are the elevations for the 3-story building F. And here is a perspective for this building F from the site. And about the landscape plans, so here is the proposed landscape palette that includes trees, shrubs, ground cover, and grasses with very low to moderate water usage. In addition to the existing oaks on site, 3 different species of oak trees are proposed to be added to the landscape as a part of this project, and there are a total of 38 oak trees proposed. Common spaces are situated near existing native oak trees, which will be preserved also as a part of this project. And just to mention that this building is within the high fire area, this project, so each building has a 30-foot defensible space setback, and all planting with this area account for canopy spacing to ensure fire safety. So the applicant will maintain that fire distance because the project site is within the fire area. And about the project history, so a neighborhood meeting was held on March 2020, and then there was a concept design review that was presented to the design review board on June 4, 2020. In general, the design review board highly appreciated the project and they overall liked it. They had good comments about it. Some of the comments were like add a restaurant or like a commercial spaces, but the applicant response was like it's not feasible to provide restaurants on site. There were other comments that I would suggest the applicant to go over those comments and explain how they were answered. But again, I just want to say that the design review board highly appreciated the proposed project. And about CEQA. So this project has been also reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Implementation of the project is within the scope of the general plan, and associated environmental impacts were previously reviewed in the general plan, EIR. The environmental checklist for streamlined review prepared for the project demonstrate that the construction and operation of the project is within the scope of the Santa Rosa General Plan EIR, certified by the City of Santa Rosa in 2009. And it concludes that the project will not result in new or more severe significant impacts that were not previously identified and mitigated in the General Plan EIR, and no substantive new mitigation measures would be required for implementation of the project. And the project is required to implement all applicable mitigation measures identified in the EIR, as well as applicable policies and implementation measures contained in the city's adopted general plan intended to reduce environmental impacts, which have been imposed as an environmental condition of approval, and they are attached with the resolution. And about public comments, so I will try to give a summary of the comments we have received from the time this project was notified from the beginning neighborhood meeting. So one of the main comments were about that future housing in this area would increase the traffic. So the applicant has provided a focused traffic study that is prepared by W-Trans, and W-Trans is also available tonight. If there are any questions, they can address it. The report concludes that the proposed project would generate 78 additional trips daily, 27 more trips during the morning peak hour, and only 11 more trips during the evening peak hours. And the project would not result in unsafe traffic conditions. Additionally, the proposed project would dedicate right-of-way along Fountain Grove Parkway frontage for the future construction by the city for an additional westbound lane. And there was a question about whether this project is providing affordable housing on the site, and the applicant has not proposed any affordable housing on site. It's a market rate project. And there was a question about if the applicant is providing any evacuation plan and permanent generators on the site for emergency situation. So the applicant has provided an evacuation plan, which has been reviewed by our fire department. And also generators are provided in building D for emergency, like an emergency fire, like emergency situation. The applicant can explain it for if there are any more questions. There was one comment about accessing building A, B, and C is unacceptable and not safe. So fire department has reviewed the project and they didn't add second access for those buildings, and no additional comments or conditions were added. Also, there was comment received about Santa Barbara design style is not appropriate for Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. So as I mentioned in the one of the previous slides, the project was reviewed by the design review board as a concept item, and it was appreciated. And it was welcomed by the design review board. Some additional comments were provided. I just want to mention that on Friday, I have received another email about this project. I will give you a brief summary of the comments. The project also had concern about the traffic, which I mentioned that the traffic study has prepared for this project. Also, it was a question about that the overpass on Highway 101 is not sufficient. And I have received comment from our traffic division, Nancy. She can go over those comments. It's in the city's plan in the future to work on the overpass on Highway 101. And okay. And then a question was about what is going, like what happens with the impact fees and where is their use audited. I told this person to review chapter 20-02, inclusionary housing. In that chapter, it explains where does impact fee go and how it's being used. And then another question was that people would be living on the site would be impacted by noise, air, and carbon pollution from the freeway, as well as Fountain Grove Parkway, Mendocino Avenue. And how do we plan to mitigate the medical and everyday effects that's situated, not mentioned in journeys and apartment traffic? So the staff response is that the impacts of the environmental on the project are not considered environmental impacts under CEQA. However, environmental conditions of approval are included for this project for the air quality and noise, and they are requesting that the applicant incorporate a higher filtration for building D, E, and F, and reduce interior noise by requiring the installation of forced air mechanical ventilation and installation of the sound rated windows for building A, D, and E. And require review and confirmation of interior noise level by a qualified acoustical special during the final design phase of the project. And with that, the Planning and Economic Development Department recommends that the zoning administrator by resolution approve the Banting Row Inn multifamily rental housing project for a proposed 239 unit developments located at 3586 Mendocino Avenue, file number PRJ 20-021, which they have 2 planning entitlements, minor design review, and hillside permit. And that was my presentation. I'm available to answer questions. I know the applicant team and the architects are also available to answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shekhali, for a very thorough presentation. That was helpful. Just to clarify, the applicant doesn't have a presentation or any comments, just available for questions.
The applicant doesn't have any presentation, but if they want to provide any comments, they're fine.
Yep, the applicant for this project could please use the raise hand feature and just confirm if you'd like to make any comments. Otherwise, I can move into questions that may be appropriate for you or Ms. Shekhali.
So it looks like we have Justin Heyman. Justin, I'm going to send a prompt and if you answer the prompt, it should enable your sound.
Yes, thank you. This is Justin Heyman. We don't have any comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I do have a few questions, but before I get into those, we do have Vice Chair Birch. He's Vice Chair of the Design Review Board, and he is available to make some comments regarding the board's concept review of this item. So it looks like he's ready to go here. I'll let him speak. Thanks.
Great, thank you. This is Michael Birch. I am the Vice Chair of the Design Review Board. I did not see this project originally, but I have watched the tapes and read the minutes and just was going to give a quick briefing as to the design review comments. And to me, it feels like most of those comments have been considered or thought about. A couple of comments that were a little bit, and I think this is already addressed a bit in Planner Shekhali's discussion. A couple of comments that were a little bit off of the design review topic were the consideration of retail. I throw it out there. I understand that it may or may not be workable. And also paying homage to the round barn and burnt structures of the fire, and it certainly appears as though there's some thought around that. So that's great. Couple of comments, maybe one from the board, one from the public about the architectural style being appropriate or not. I throw that in there. I think the project is quite attractive, and I think it was a really limited comment from design review. I do know that there were a few comments from design review about kind of owning the fact that the hillside is a unique setting and working with that from a landscape design standpoint. In the course of that, perhaps adding more walking areas and maybe some pockets for residents to hang out or do things using vines and landscaping at the ground plane to break up massing. I know that's a fine balance between how much landscaping you want to plant and how much defensible area there is. The one comment from an architectural standpoint that probably resonated the most was making sure that the buildings were four-sided. It's part of our design guidelines. I recognize that due to grades and some other things that elevations can be a bit tricky, but between architecture and landscape, we want to make sure that we don't have elevations of the building or views to the site that present less than fully developed architectural design. We don't want flat surfaces or blanks or backs or that sort of thing. Those were a handful of the comments that came from design review, and I would be happy to answer any questions if Amy has some, or if the applicant does as well regarding the current design, which I've reviewed as well. So,
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Birch. I don't have any questions for you at this time, but I'm going to ask a few questions of staff and also the applicant. So I might come back to you, but really appreciate that summary. One of my questions relates to the parking and the site plan. So I understand that there's a request for I believe it's a 9% parking reduction. And I reviewed the parking analysis that was prepared by W-Trans. I don't have any questions about the parking reduction. My question is related to the number of spaces that are adjacent to the various buildings. And I'm wondering, Ms. Shekali, it might be helpful if you can screen share the site plan, and perhaps if the applicant can talk through a little bit about just related to the number of parking spaces provided and sort of which buildings those parking spaces would be allocated for. I saw that there was a kind of parking management blurb attached to a public comment. So like one of my questions is the parking lot that's just north of building D, but it's just surrounded by trees. If those are kind of envisioned to provide parking for tenants of a particular building, and just sort of how you thought about where the parking would be provided relative to the units.
I would refer it to the applicant team so they can answer how many parkings are dedicated outside around the buildings. Maybe Justin, they can answer it.
And you can, Mr. Heyman, I think you should have speaking permissions if you just press the unmute button.
I sent a prompt as well, but once we do the sound check, it should be pretty smooth.
Okay. Are you able to send another prompt?
Oh, it looks to be
Oh,
unmuted
okay.
right now. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, hi, this is Justin. I believe our architect, Lori Feldberg, wanted to take this one.
Great. Thank you.
I don't, let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm sending a prompt for you.
How did that work? Did that work okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. First off, thank you, Monet. Very thorough presentation. In terms of the parking, as a hillside development, the vision that we developed in conjunction with working with staff was that this was a holistic community, and the great analysis that was presented illustrates what we're working with on the site. So we really tried to get as much parking adjacent to the buildings as we could. That small area of parking that you noted is just surrounded by trees is probably going to function as overflow, particularly given the parking analysis provided by W-Trans. And so we're not necessarily saying that's exactly for one building or the other. Usually on projects of this scale, particularly with the numbers that they were giving us for what they thought the parking demand would be, is significantly lower than what we're providing. We're only a 9% reduction. There was quite a bit of room for reduction in there that they noted. That parking will get used as the tenants move in, as the community really starts to get its legs under it and develops who's going to live here and what their lifestyle is. So we don't necessarily have that particular lot as, well, it's only going to be for this. It's really part of the evolution, but it all adds to the totals for the community. Did that help?
Yes, that's it's helpful to know that there isn't an assignment of spaces, in lots to different buildings. The reason that I asked about it was just thinking about pedestrian circulation and safety on the site. So if somebody parks in that lot north of building D, but they're trying to get to building F, I noted that there aren't any sidewalks, and I realized that it's a steep slope there, and we're up against a property line as well on the on that northern section. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, or if you've thought about how pedestrians move from that parking lot to other buildings, for example, if they weren't just going to building D or E.
Yeah, and between that parking area and building F, to your point, I mean, that's really a continuation of the parking lot. We've reviewed this with fire and with building, and as an emergency vehicle access, it doesn't go anywhere except to your own homes. And so there's no through traffic on that. It's really kind of like walking through the parking lot. So you're exactly correct. We are very limited by the hillside. We did investigate looking at putting in some more connectivity across the site. Unfortunately, to get it to meet ADA standards, it would look like a bomb went off on the site by the time we were done. And so we aren't really able to do as much connection as we'd like, just because of the nature of the landform. And we didn't want to just grade the entire hillside to where it looked like such an industrialized setting for people to live in.
Sure, I can understand that. Thank you for those comments. And I thought maybe I read something about a golf cart maybe being stationed in that parking lot, and maybe building D to help with circulation.
Yeah,
Justin,
I think that was an operational element that ownership is providing. I'm not answering that part because it's not an architectural component, but yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for your response. And go ahead, Mr. Heyman.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Nicholson, thank you. Yeah, so we are planning to have 2 4-seat golf carts, and we are going to station one near building F and then one down in the building D garage, which is the hub. So residents that need to get between the 2 areas will have a safe path to travel that way.
Okay, great. Thank you. I did note, I believe Vice Chair Birch mentioned this, and I also saw it in a public comment and noticed it myself. And I think that Ms. Shikali probably presented a good explanation as it relates to defensible space, but there are a few elevations where there are some blank walls. Can someone, and perhaps the architect is the best to address this, maybe describe in those particular areas that you've explored different options and none of those landscape options would work because of defensible space requirements? And also, are there any cases where there's some existing mature oak trees that are on site? Because I do see some of those as kind of shadows on these renderings.
Can you still hear me, or am I muted again?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we actually did work with the design review board and talk through which of the areas. And so the trees are shadowed, so you can actually see the architecture, but there are trees in front of all of those areas. To the left of this, there is a grove of mature oaks that it's kind of the left of this bottom building here. And you look into them between the 2 buildings in the back, but yeah, so even though they're defensible space, the landscape plans actually updated and showed trees in those areas. So I think we've addressed all of those locations.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that concludes my one final question. Ms. Shikali, I noted that you described one piece of late correspondence that wasn't summarized in your presentation. so it was just limited to that one, and that was what was, I believe I saw that included as late correspondence on the agenda. Is that correct?
Correct. There was one received on Friday from, let me give the name, from this person named Pat St. Claire. She provided comments, and some of the questions were answered by the applicant about affordability. And then she sent 2 emails, and the second one came in on Friday. So I believe it was not included in your late correspondence. So I just tried to give a brief summary of what the comments were.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. If you wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands being raised. So with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this item. So I have reviewed the resolution. So the actions before the zoning administrator today for this project are design review, a hillside development permit, and then the design review also includes some findings for the parking reduction of 9%. I appreciate all of the findings. I think that they're well supported. And I also want to mention that I reviewed the CEQA document and comparison with the city's current general plan EIR, and I appreciate that level of analysis for this project. I did want to ask if Ms. Adams, our transportation planner, has any comments that she'd like to provide as it relates to traffic and circulation, just because I know that was mentioned by a few members of the public.
So thank you, Amy. I think Mr. Colley did a great overview of the project, including the traffic. And I will, and by the way, I'm Nancy Adams with the Transportation and Public Works Department and the traffic engineering team. And so just, I think the main thing operationally that we wanted to make sure that we secured from this applicant was the right of way, so that we could eventually at some point have enough room to add an additional westbound left turn lane there at that intersection of Fountain Grove and Mendocino, and which the applicant will be providing as part of their, working with the city. So I think that's, that was a pretty significant help for us operationally at that intersection. So I don't really have anything else to add. I thought Monet did a great job. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I do have one additional question. It actually relates to the round barn feature. Ms. Shakali, if you wouldn't mind, can you screen share that section? I just want to get a little bit of clarity on that design and ask a process related question too.
And I would also suggest the architect go into more detail if there are any. Let me see, where is, okay. Here, this one on the left side. I mean, on the right side. The location is at this corner, and this would be the design of the structure.
Okay, and what's the height? I'm sorry,
16. The max proposed is 16.
Okay, and it's fully outside of any vision triangle.
Vision triangle, correct.
Okay, and then just so I more fully understand the design, so it's not a full circle, it's half
circle, correct. Here you
and
can
then
see
what does the other side look like? The side that just shows is open. Is it going to actually be closed, or is it going to be open? And what does the material look like on that other side? And the architect can answer too.
Sure. I've unmuted. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so basically what it is it allows you to see the structure on the inside as well. So it's not trying to be a complete building, and we're not walling off that side, but it allows you to see the components of how the roof is held up, the truss work, all of that element that created the original round barn. Obviously, everything is scaled down, but we felt like it gave a really nice view to it. And then there's going to be a plaque outside, more towards the public sidewalk, that it gives a little bit of the history of the round barn.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that should conclude my questions on this item. Oh, I see the vice chair's hand being raised.
I'm fascinated by the round barn recognition. I wonder if you thought about turning this the other direction so that all of the tens and hundreds of thousands of car trips actually saw the interior and saw that support system and that sort of thing. Just an interesting thought. So,
you know, the public visibility was always to the outside. And so we wanted to continue with the visual that was more to the public, because it was private property before. People couldn't just go in it. And so we felt like it might be interesting for those of us who are architects or construction folks, but I think from a general public standpoint, and a memorance, the outside form is more pleasing probably to most of the public.
yeah, excellent.
Bear with me, I'm just pulling up the draft resolution of approval here. So as I mentioned earlier, I think the findings, I agree with each of the findings for design review. I feel like the applicants have done a good job of addressing comments from the design review board, so that's certainly appreciated. That's why we require that these projects go to concept review. So thank you for taking those comments seriously. I don't have any concerns about granting the parking reduction given the site's location within one of our priority development areas. We want to encourage this type of land use in these areas that have more access to transit, and also there are more services available nearby. As it relates to the hillside development permit, I agree. I think there were some comments made about the project design being sensitive to the topography, and I agree. I think just the breaking up of the massing and how the buildings are placed, like the heights are related to the natural grade, I think really does help to minimize the visual impact. And appreciate the largest buildings being on the flattest part of the site that was previously developed. And also that a lot of the trees will be preserved as well and provide some screening and just make it appear more natural. So just quickly looking at the conditions of approval, thank you for adding in the requirement to comply with the environmental conditions that were cited in the CEQA document. And also for including the engineering development services conditions. So with that, I will approve this project. So the design review and the hillside development permit. And just a note to those listening, this action is appealable 10 days following today's decision. So that would be June 23rd, which is a Thursday. So if you would like to file an appeal, please contact Ms. Shekali and she can help you out with that effort. And thank you to everyone who attended to support this item. Appreciate your time. Let's see, so we're ready to move on to item 5.2. This is a public hearing for 701 Wilson Street, and this is also minor design review. And the presentation today will be given by Deputy Director Jones.
Okay, great. Thank you. Give me one moment while I get my PowerPoint pulled up here. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Zoning Administrator Nicholson. I am Jessica Jones, the Deputy Director for our Planning Division. Connor McKay is the project planner for this project, but he is out of town, so I will be presenting it for him today. So the project is the Pullman Lofts Phase 2 project, which is proposing to construct 40 residential units on a five-story multifamily development. This includes a floor area ratio of 2.19. The project also includes 5% of the units, or 2 of those units, designated for affordable households. The project features 4 units and 5 tuck under parking spaces on the ground floor. And then on floors 2 through 5, there would be 9 units each on each of the floors. And those units would range in size from about 414 square feet to 625 square feet. So pretty small units. The amenities for building C will be provided and shared by the Pullman Phase 1 portion of this project, which is on the north end of the site, which I'll show you in just a moment. And that project is currently under construction. Those amenities include a dog run, a car wash, or excuse me, not a car wash, a dog wash, a pool area, a gym, bike storage, office, a conference room, and a community lounge. So this is the project site. It is located at 701 Wilson Street. So it's a long, skinny site that's located on the east side of the rail line. The existing Phase 1 project that is currently under construction is on the northern end of this site. So this area obviously was taken prior to the construction of the new portion, but that's happening on, like I said, on the northern end. And the proposed project will be down here on the southern end. So the project is designated by our general plan in the neighborhood mixed use designation. The maximum floor area ratio, which is how we look at density in the downtown area, the maximum for this parcel is 4. This is established by the Downtown Stationary Specific Plan, which was recently adopted by council. Given the size of this lot and the overall square footage for both phases, the total floor area ratio for the project as a whole is 1.34, so well below the maximum of 4. So as mentioned, this project is within the Downtown Stationary Specific Plan, which is also one of our priority development areas, or PDA for short. And the site is zoned neighborhood commercial mixed use, which is consistent with the general plan land use designation. In accordance with the zoning code, similar to the last project that we heard, because this project is within the PDA, the zoning code allows for a reduced review authority. So rather than going through the design review board for action, the project can come before the zoning administrator. However, concept design review by the design review board is required, as with the previous project. And so the design review board reviewed this particular project in January of 2022. And similar to the last project, we've got Vice Chair Birch here from the design review board, who will go over the comments that were provided by the board at that time. And I'll go into them in a little bit myself. The project is on the east side of the West End Preservation District, which is one of the city's preservation districts, and on the far side of the Smart Train Railway, as I mentioned already. However, the project is not located within the preservation district, and as a result of that, the review by the Cultural Heritage Board was not required. I do want to note that there is no parking requirement for this site, as established by the Downtown Stationary Specific Plan. However, the project does propose to provide 5 parking spaces, including 1 electric vehicle charging station. And then additional parking will be shared with phase one for this project, which includes new parking along Wilson Street. So these next two slides are showing the elevations of the proposed building. This is looking northeast from 8th Street. And then this is looking west from Wilson Street. And then this is the floor plan for the ground floor. As I mentioned, there are parking spaces on the ground floor, along with 4 units. And then this is a sample of the upper floors, which have 9 units. So a little bit of project history. So the project was reviewed through a neighborhood meeting on January 12th of this year. There were a number of comments received during that meeting. Overall, there was support for multifamily residential at this location. There were a couple of questions that were received that staff has provided responses to. I'll go through those quickly. First question was regarding the density of the project and whether there could be additional density added. And staff's response was that the project could be more dense, but that this was the most cost-effective solution for the site and the project at a building height that is appropriate for this location. Next question was why there was no retail proposed as part of this project. And staff's response was that the applicant is primarily a residential developer and intends to maximize the residential units at this site to attract and support future retail uses in the general area around this site. The surrounding area is also located in neighborhood mixed use land use area, which will allow for other retail land uses by right in the immediate area. And then as far as concerns that were heard at the meeting, they mostly were revolving around traffic and parking. And staff's response to those concerns that were raised is that the applicant's presentation at that time described how the project's location, transit-oriented development, and target residential market are anticipated to result in reduced reliance on cars, which would result in a reduced traffic and parking demand. And also the Pullman Phase 1 project, which is currently under construction, includes about 17 new parking spaces on Wilson Street. And then as mentioned, the project was reviewed in concept by the Design Review Board, and that happened in January of this year. The board provided numerous comments, which are listed here. Just in general, there was support by the board for the project. In response to the comments that are listed here on the slide, the applicant did make some revisions to the project, and those included the electric vehicle charging station was relocated to a more central location. The applicant has replaced the previously proposed lap siding at the corner of Wilson and 8th Street with gray stucco to provide greater continuity on the eastern facade. The applicant has added additional stucco color to the body of each building to provide more color vibrancy and achieve greater color consistency with Pullman Lots Phase 1. They have modified the window design and introduced new color to the window treatment and provided more continuous vertical articulation to break up the flatter southern building facade. They've also relocated the rooftop equipment to minimize visibility from the public right-of-way. And then additional vertical landscape trellises have been added on the eastern building facade, and a decorative pot has been proposed at the building entrance located outside of the public right-of-way. There was a request for modification of one of the design standards, which was submitted to the city and considered by the director, which is an option that is provided by our municipal code, specifically for projects that are complying with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance by providing on-site affordability. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the applicant is providing 5% of the units or 2 units as affordable to low-income households, which is 80% of the area median income Those are going to be on-site units. So with that, the applicant is entitled to concessions within our inclusionary housing ordinance. So their request was to modify the front setback on the 8th Street frontage from the required 5 to 12 feet setback to 0. And this was reviewed by the Director of the Planning and Economic Development Department and approved pursuant to our zoning code. Let's see, as far as CEQA is concerned, the project was reviewed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and was found to qualify for a statutory exemption under CEQA guidelines section 15182, in that the project is consistent, it consists of residential and is consistent with the adopted downtown stationary specific plan, for which a final subsequent EIR was prepared and certified by the City Council in October of 2020. And the consistency analysis, which was prepared by M Group, dated June of 2022, supported this finding. So we have received numerous letters for this project. We've gotten 3 letters of support are listed here. We actually received an additional 4th letter of support today. That additional letter of support was just talking about general support for multifamily housing, and particularly these smaller type units in this location. We also received a couple of letters of concern. The first letter of concern was regarding the fact that they felt that the units, there's insufficient units that are designed for affordable households, and that market rate housing does not work to alleviate the region's housing crisis. As mentioned, this project is providing much smaller units than we typically see for bigger projects. So pretty small, about between 400 and 500 square feet. And then also the on-site inclusionary housing will provide on-site units for affordability. And then the other letter of concern that was received was expressing concern again regarding the parking. And as mentioned, this site is not required to provide parking, but they are in this particular phase. And then also there's additional parking being provided in the first phase of the project. And then also we would also note the project's nearness to various public transit, including the downtown smart station, which is in walking distance of this site. So with that, the Planning and Economic Development Department recommends that the zoning administrator by resolution approve the Pullman Lofts Phase 2 project, allowing the construction of a new 5-story structure to accommodate 40 multifamily units located at 701 Wilson Street. So I am available for questions. We also have the applicant here, and I believe that they have a presentation, which I'm happy to share when they are ready.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Jones. Does the applicant, okay, I see a hand raised. So Ms. Jones, if you're ready, I would like to see the applicant presentation next. Thank you.
Okay, I will get this going here. Okay, so I think when the applicant's ready.
Yeah, good evening, Zoning Administrator Nicholson. I appreciate the opportunity here. My name is Lauren Brigham. I'm president and co-owner of Phoenix Development Company. I'm going to make this really quickly because I think Ms. Jones did a very good job of walking through the project. And I think that it would probably be more conducive for me to just be available to answer questions. I do have also available, I believe online, Marvin Moss, our architect, Justin Heathcote, our landscape architect, and I believe Ron Santos, our civil engineer, is available. This is an aerial view. You can see off to the right there, what we call buildings A and B that are currently under construction, ready to occupy this August. And basically what we call building C, which is actually could be, some people call phase 2, some call it building C, what it is actually the bookend and the completion of this side of the Wilson Street redevelopment. The character that has been employed through this whole project is probably trying to emulate some of the industrial look in the area and to simplify and create some vibrancy along Wilson Street and basically recover for the neighborhood property that was an eyesore in its previous condition. One quick point about Ms. Jones' comments on the unit sizes. We're also at Phoenix. We have our feet in both sides of the market and affordable market. We recently completed Dutton Flats over on 3rd and Dutton. And that project is a LIHTC project designated for families at 60% or less of AMI. There was over 1,600 people on the interest list. Many were turned away because they made too much money and overqualified. And that's kind of been a target market that my partner, Michelle Olson, and I have been looking at for a couple of years now, is how to make something affordable for what is getting to be known as the missing middle. And so that this project is designed to fit that marketplace. And it's basically, that's why we downsize the units. The cost of construction is extremely high. It's probably the highest it's been in years. And to get the correct amount of investment in return and to pencil out for our lenders, we're able to, but still charge rents that are attainable for those people in this missing middle market. Go to the next slide, please. The development team, that's us. Next. And there's our design group next. We can go next. You see the site, you did all that fine. Next. Those are changes that basically we've incorporated based on both our community meeting and our design concept review with the design review board. We took into account as many of the suggestions, and you can see it in the final result. Next. 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 I think you've seen all of this. Honestly, I think Ms. Nicholson, I think maybe the best thing to do would be to open it up and to first get the vice chairman on here and let him make his comments, and then get some community feedback, and then let myself and my team respond to questions. I think everything else we're going to see here is fairly redundant of what Ms. Jones very elegantly displayed previous to this. So at that, I'll mute and I'll let you do what you want to do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the suggestion, and so I'll ask the vice chair if he's able to make some comments at this time.
Yeah, this is Michael Birch, Vice Chair of the Design Review Board. Like as Lauren said, Jessica wrapped up the comments from the Design Review Board very clearly. I had pretty much the same bullet points for all of the items that she listed, including some articulation, color, facade questions, the EV charging, working on the base of the building a little bit, screening the mechanical equipment. Those were all of the comments that we had as well. And then I think it's really, really hats off to you, Lauren, to the development team, the design team, the 6 points you just shared at the end, and what I've seen in looking at the updated package. You guys, basically hit every one of those points, responded, and the design is improved as a result. So From my perspective and the design review board, I think this was an excellent response to the comments that we made, and we appreciate the collaboration and your ongoing work in Santa Rosa.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Birch. Really appreciate those comments. I don't think I have any questions right now, but what I'd like to do is open the public hearing portion. So if you wish to make a comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. We'll give it a few seconds here. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this item. And I guess I do have, I'll just say I appreciate the, Ms. Jones, in your presentation, how you talked about how the comments from the board were addressed, and how the vice chair reiterated that. That's really helpful, especially reviewing this project after the board has seen it. So I can cross that question off. I saw that there's two units that are to be made available for low-income households. So are these deed restricted units?
Yes, so as required by our code, in order to be considered compliant with our inclusionary housing ordinance, they will be required to be deed restricted at that low income rate.
Great, thank you. And then lastly, I did say I had a note because there was some late correspondence that came in this afternoon, and you were able to describe that in your presentation. There's nothing additional.
No, there were no additional comments that came in today.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna just taking a final look at the draft resolution of approval. So this is for minor design review. And I did review the consistency checklist that was prepared to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act. I appreciate how concise it was, just in showing that this project is consistent with the downtown station area specific plan. I also noted, because I was present at the design review board meeting back in January, how the project had changed just really quickly, seeing the new plans, and appreciate the incorporation of some of the colors that I think relate it well to the existing or under construction Pullman lofts. And I agree with each of the findings that are included in this draft resolution. With that, I'll go ahead and approve this resolution for minor design review. And please note that that action is appealable. So Thursday, June 23rd would be the appeal deadline for today's action. So that concludes item 5.2. And we can move on to our last item, which is item number 6, adjournment. And thank you all for attending. And please note the appeal period. If you have any questions, please contact the project planner. Thanks all for your time.
Thank you.